Hi, this is Shane Starr, and I'm doing this video at home instead of work. This is a in-between video from my MBTI video on cognitive functions and the inferior function, how that plays out in the workplace, and my upcoming Socionics video I'm going to make about the polar point of least resistance function, or information element as it's called in Socionics. And in the process between the two videos, I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to look like I'm giving inconsistent information, because it would stand to reason that someone with an inferior function, let's say introverted intuition, and someone in Socionics with a polar function of introverted intuition should look pretty much the same, maybe a little more extreme in the Socionics, but virtually the same. As I was doing the video, I realized this isn't the case, and it brought me back to a long-standing theme of mine that I do in videos, and that is that, and I know it's a hot take, I know people smarter than me and more experienced than me will disagree, but I'm going to say it yet again. The systems are not the same. I wish they had different letters. You know, I remember when I got my typing from Rusted, LSE, and my own self-typing for MBTI is ISTJ. And it's like, even though I liked Rusted's typing on me, and I liked typing with famous people's, Eric, his typing on me too, well, how could they both be right? It's because they define the functions differently. It's simple as that. And if we want to eliminate those types of conflicts, then we need to arrive at a standardized notion of understanding the functions. This is the way I see it. It's a very elementary Venn diagram, and I made it squares instead of circles. Here it is. If you look, you see the blue is the MBTI definition of functions. The red is the Socionics definition of the same functions. Depending on the function, there might be more overlap or less. For instance, extroverted intuition, there's probably more overlap in the systems on that count. Something like introverted intuition, to me, there's very less overlap. But it's like, we have the blue, the red, and then the purple is like the kernel or core of them both. Now, this will result in different types at the end. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm going with this, and that's what's going to lead in different typings, in not only in different systems, but even, you know, as I was doing my research. Okay, so who am I going to use for MBTI? And I jumped around, and it's like, you know, you have Trudy, Personality Junkie. I ended up settling on a Joyce Ming video that I'll put in the body of the video, because I think she's at the forefront of MBTI research, and she's doing stuff with Dario Nardi and brain scanning and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to use her definitions, but you know, I could do this video just between MBTI and wonder, why am I this in this guy's system and that in another person's system? It's because those two people have varying degrees of differences on the functions. So without further delay, let's get into it. I made a little cheat sheet list, but and I was originally going to read off my computer, and I never do the edit and start all over again, but this time I did, because I was through like one function and it took like 8 minutes. So it's like, for the purposes of getting this video done more quickly, I'm going to kind of run through it. So we're looking mostly at Joyce Ming's definition of the functions, which I think is pretty accurate as an overall MBTI viewpoint. And then we're looking at the sociotypes. I'm sure most of you who have anything to do with Socionics, you're familiar with that website where you can take your test and see how that works. So sociotypes and Socionics, Joyce Ming and MBTI. And we're going to look at the MBTI, then the Socionics, and then I'm going to kind of bring them together. Okay, so let's start with TI. That's introverted thinking. For the MBTI side, we're looking at internal principles, subjective logic, a subjective standard, and it's analytical thinking. It's not that different from FI actually, because it's making judgments but on the logical side. So I think the key thing here is it's internal logic. Now on the Socionics side, it has a more objective feel to it, if not straight up different. In Socionics, it's more about classifications, categories, and structure. Now you might, where they come together is analysis. They're both analytical. It's analysis on both sides. However, the MBTI has a more subjective feel to it. Like a lead TI and MBTI can probably have a messier desk space, whereas in Socionics, it's going to have a more objective feel. A lead TI person will probably be more likely to keep things in order, okay, on an external as well as internal category. Okay, moving on. We have extroverted intuition. So for MBTI, this is about brainstorming, exploring ideas, looking at patterns. And for Socionics, it's more about potential in objects, or ideas. It's possibilities. It's more about looking at the potential of things here and now. And that way, I think there's a lot of overlap in this particular function. However, there is still a difference in that I think NE in Socionics is closer to SE in MBTI than NE in MBTI is to SE in MBTI, if that makes any sense. NE in MBTI, it's all about brainstorming, exploring ideas. In Socionics, it's more about potential and possibility. And I think where they come together, and there's a lot of overlap here, is both extrovert intuition systems. It's about connections, making those mental connections. Okay, moving on. FI. Here, it's more nuanced instead of hard differences, but in MBTI, this is about personal values, personal likes, personal dislikes. This is extraneous to the main argument, but there's a certain sense of a love of animals, babies, nature, that kind of thing. In Socionics, it's just about judgment. Now, I don't mean only judgment in one sense of the word. There's two ways we can have judgment. There's judging as in sitting on a figurative throne and judging other people. Oh, this is bad, that's bad, this is good, that's bad. And there's also judgment as in discernment, as into judgment like which way should we go, what is the proper way of doing things. And this is FI in the Socionic sense. It's more about discernment, judgments, having an opinion, not necessarily an emotional opinion. It's more, FI in Socionics is closer to TI than FI is to TI in MBTI. I'd say where they both kind of converge and come together would be both involve one's morals, your sense of right and wrong. Okay, but the MBTI side will have a little more of an emotional feel about the morals, whereas In the socionic sense, it will be just more judgment about which morals are good and which ones aren't. Okay, moving on to SE. And I think this is a great example of why I will say these systems are not the same. Okay, in MBTI, SE is about experience, just experiencing the world as it comes. Your five senses, reality as it is, what's going on around me right now. And there's a sense of that in Socionics, but SE in Socionics is about power, force, establishing your territory, taking action that's more reserved to TE in the MBTI sense of the word. That's why so many TE leads in MBTI are supposedly Enneagram 8s, whereas in Socionics, it's the SE leads that are Enneagram 8s, right? Because force is associated, even though it's not hardcore defined this way, force is more associated in MBTI with TE, whereas in Socionics, force is associated with SE. I'd say where the two come together would be, it would be opportunity, I think, because when you live in the here and now, you're looking for opportunities, and also when you're exerting your force, you're also on the lookout for opportunities. But SE, I think, is a clear example in and of itself. If I didn't look at any of these other ones, I could use that as my point against every person, smaller or greater than me, to say, look, these systems are not the same. Just because you're an SLE does not mean you're an ESTP, and vice versa, you know? And I think to varying degrees, all the functions are like that. Okay, moving on. Here's another good one. FE, extroverted feeling. In MBTI, this is about shared feelings, relationships, building harmony, helping other people. Okay, and like here, to digress, you know, when I was typed by Eric, he nailed me as FE polar real quick. In MBTI, yes, I'm not good at building harmony in group settings, like in personal or at work. I sit in a corner and read. I'm not into like, oh, we're all gonna sing now. Oh, we're all gonna do, like, no, dude. I'm in the corner. I'm reading. I'm doing a video, or I'm studying for something. Like, I'm not about the group feeling, shared harmony, the, you know, vibes and all that. In Socionics, I'm not FE polar. Why? Because FE is not about that in Socionics. In Socionics, FE is about emotional expression. It's about showing your feelings. You know, slamming your racket after a bad point in tennis, that's an expression that could be, hey, that's FE. In MBTI, that would be the opposite almost of FE, because it's harmony breaking instead of harmony causing. In Socionics, that emotional passion and expression can be negative as well as positive. Whereas a negative expression in FE in MBTI would be lacking FE or bad FE. It wouldn't be strong FE expressed in a different way. Okay, so to me, this is another example. The only overlap here, I'd say, is they both have to do with emotions. On the MBTI side is building emotions in with a group of people. On the Socionic side, it's about emotional expression. But these things mean very different things if you analyze it. Okay, moving on. SI. In MBTI, I would call myself an SI lead. Why? Because SI is about taking your memories, using those, storing concrete information in your mind, using what works, attached to the past. This is, again, extraneous to the argument, but people with strong SI will like things like, I'm an avid Twilight Zone watcher, you know, 60s stuff. I love the James Bond movies, the old ones with Roger Moore, Sean Connery. I love the Mad Men series, you know, add things in the 60s. I like classic things like that. I like to, I can memorize things, especially things that upset me, but I have a really good memory for my childhood and for the past. This is what SI is about in MBTI. That's why it's so strong to me. It's about, you use these things to build routines that work for you, diet routines, workout routines, daily routines. Like I wake up at the same time, do the same exercise, make my coffee the same way, put my cup in the same place. Everything goes according to a schedule. I have a list that I cross off when I get to work, and then I have a list for that stuff. That's all SI and MBTI. Guess what? Even though I test as SLI, which is the same function on sociotypes, the way that plays out, SLI, that's not my type in Socionics, because I probably have too much energy to be that type in Socionics. So why? Because in Socionics, SI is about comfort, pleasure, harmony, coziness. It's about, I don't want to use a negative view of it, but if we were to attribute the word lazy to a particular function in Socionics, it would be SI. Think of the guy just watching movies, eating a bag of chips with a soda and room a complete disaster, just flipping the channel, chilling, relaxing. In Socionics, that's SI. That's a SI lead and maybe TE creative. So that same type in MBTI, which I would claim is my own type, you're a worker bee, conscientious, like to the hilt. That's completely different, completely black and white different. On the MBTI side, SI plus TE equals productive, organized, devoted to work, structured, all those types of things. That same function stack in Socionics equals kick back, chill, go with the flow, kind of like a chill ISTP in MBTI. So SI, I would say the only thing that connects these understandings of introverted sensing would be stability. And maybe on a technical level, because to me, SI, in my own personal thing, and I'm not going off something I read here, but I think of internal impressions from objects. When I see a red balloon, and it reminds me of a Winnie the Pooh story from when I was a child, and so that a red balloon means something more to me than plastic filled up with helium with a string colored a certain shade of red. It has a deep, not emotional, but like a nostalgic feel to it when I see one. I think that could work in both Socionics and MBTI, but more so in MBTI. Okay, moving on to TE. In MBTI, this is about facts, logic, reason, persuasive argument, measurable goals, right? And I think very similarly in Socionics, it's sort of like that, but there's an element of pragmatism to the Socionics side that is sort of missing on the MBTI side. If I were to make it more clearly, and I'm going to show this at the end of my video, but in MBTI, TE is almost like a hybrid between TE and TI in Socionics, because some of those elements of organization and categories and structure, those are present in the MBTI interpretation of extroverted thinking, but they're not so much there in Socionics. In Socionics, TE is about what works well. Let's get this job done. And there's some of that in MBTI too. So this is one that I would say there's more overlap than some of the other ones, mostly in terms of the organizational part, but In Socionics, TE is all about organizing. In MBTI, SI has a big chunk of that, and TE has probably part of that, but not to the same extent that it does in Socionics. In Socionics, a good example back to Enneagram, a lead TE in MBTI is likely to be Enneagram 8. In Socionics, a lead TE will either be a 1 or a 3, won't be an 8. Okay? And think on that and let me know in the comments if that works for you or not. Okay, last but not least, I saved a big one for last because in Socionics, this would be my polar function. I truly believe that, but not in MBTI. Okay, why? Because in introverted sensing in MBTI, that's about symbolism, instincts, your subconscious knowing, like you know something, you don't know how you know it. It's being able to predict the future without a particular thinking or feeling structure. It's gut instinct, it's intuition, it's very it's like grasping the wind. It's hard to even describe it. And the way Eric in Typing Famous People does it, test for that is he gives you a setting and then you have to build a story on it. And in my typing session with him, I nailed it. And he's okay, you're not NI-polar. Okay, granted. And in his system, in MBTI, I'm not NI-polar. However, in Socionics, the main element of introverted intuition is time. Now, is there a little bit of overlap there? Yeah, but it's just a little bit. In Socionics, this is cause and effect, the development of objects, people, and things over time, and your feelings about time and your grapples with time. And when I think of time in that sense, and I think of resentments I have from my childhood versus something that happened to me a month ago, and to me it's kind of all the same. And I think about the difference in me at 20 versus 30, versus younger versus older, and it kind of all meshes together. I think, I have a very normative, ordinary view of the flow of time. In some ways that has served me well, because in a way it's almost like denial. That's why no matter how old I grow, I can continue to do things as I've always done them, because my brain just doesn't accept, hey, you're getting older, maybe you should settle down or slow down. It's like, no, I'm just going to keep going, like I feel the same. I can't tell the difference. In Socionics, that's the polar function. It's kind of fuzzy, mysterious, you don't really get it. And I would say in MBTI, it's a whole different thing. It's more about symbolism, making, understanding like the theme of a story. You watch a movie and you can say, hey, what was the point of this? And you can create a sub-story based on the actual story with your imagination. And to me, so the overlap would be maybe insights into the future, but that's about it. And so when someone comes back and says, well, how could you be this type in Socionics and this other type in MBTI? How could you be polar function in Socionics but not in MBTI? Why do you agree with two different typings? Now you know, okay? I made a demonstration. I bought colored pencils for this. So how does this all play out in the end? This is, to me, there's 16 MBTI types and there are 16 Socionics types. There is some correlation, but not completely. So to illustrate this, what I did is I bought a bunch of colored pencils. And to me, that's what we're looking at. So, an ESTP in MBTI looks like this, but in Socionics, it looks like that. Someone could say that it's the same type, they're both blue. Yeah, they are both blue, but they're not quite the same. And if you think ESFP in MBTI or 16 personalities, the cartoon of the lady dancing, is the same as an SEE in Socionics, let me know in the comments because we can have a good argument over that. Look at each corresponding color. It's close. This would probably be ENTP because it's pretty close in both systems. That's the one that makes the most sense. If you're one in one, you're probably the same thing in the other. And then some are a little more different, like this one's more different from that one. Maybe that's ESTP and SLE. You could be the same in both systems, but maybe not. So that's the kind of thing. Then you have Enneagram over here. So if you're Enneagram 4, then maybe you probably go with these types in Socionics or something, but not if they're ENTPs though. Anyway, that might be a weird comparison or very way of expressing it, and this video still went longer than I wanted, but to me personally, this is my personal FI talking here. This is probably the most important video I've ever done on my channel because it illustrates what I think is the prime issue or problem with typology. Here's what we need, and any great typologist watching this, please work towards this end. We need standardized definitions for each of the functions. Once we have that, guess what? We will have standardized definitions of the 16 types. And once we have that, we will be on our way to a more scientific understanding of the whole discipline because we will objectively know the difference between one type and another type. And then guess what? Our typings of famous people and of each other as well as ourselves, they will start to harmonize and make more sense. All right? If you got this far, thank you. I'll be back with my Socionics polar functions video either tomorrow or the next day. It just depends on whether I want to do another one from home or not. All right? Peace out.